Hello class, welcome back here with Mr. McCue. We are on starting section 1.3. We're going to work on exponents, roots, and please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which is a sentence that was learned, passed on to me from other students who learned it, and that is the order of operations. Okay, now we are going to start here on page 1 for this video. So we're going to work with exponents. So let's go ahead and take a look at objective number 1. What the heck does an exponent mean? It means basically take the base multiplied by itself however how many times you see in the raised upper subscript. So if it says the base 2 raised to the exponent of 5, it means take the base multiplied by itself 5 times. Make sure you keep telling yourself you multiply the base by itself however how many numbers you see up in the exponent. Okay, so 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2, 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Hold on, let me try that again. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Excuse me. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2, 32. Okay. So most everybody's probably pretty comfortable with that, so we'll show a couple more examples. What happens if you had the same base multiplied out? Could you write it in an exponential format? Sure. Take the base, write it, and write how many times you've seen it there, and that would be a 3, and it's 4 to the third. Okay, one of the things you got to constantly keep telling yourself is 4, the little raised 3, is not, repeat, not 4 times 3. I hesitate to even write it on here. It's simply wrong, so don't allow that to get into your head. It's always the base multiplied by itself 3 times. So 4 times 4 would be what? 16. 16 times 3. Your answer would be 64 in this case, not 12. Okay, a couple more examples. 5 squared. Remember, we don't say 2. You say squared, and think of that's because when you have the area and a rectangle, you'd have 2 units going this way, 2 units going that way. 2 times 2 is 4. It is not 5 times 2 like we've repeated before. Also, if you had 4 to the third, that's the same as saying 4 cubed. And that is because you have a cubed box. Let's see if I can draw this real quick. And when you get dimensions of 3, you're going length, width, and height. So if they all are equal to 4, 4 times 4 would be 16. 16 times 4 is 64 cubic feet would be inside that cube. Okay, just to help you out with some of the lingo. So if you see a 3, we say to the third. If you see second, you say squared. Okay. Next example we're going to work on over here. What happens if you've got a negative base? Okay, you follow the same rules, except what's interesting is what if you had a negative base, you multiplied by an odd number. Now look at the 3. 1, 2, 3 multiplied by itself 3 times 3. What will the net result be? Negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative will always result in a negative. Okay, so these are some shortcut rules. If you feel comfortable, it's nice to have them in there to help you make sure you get the sign correctly when you write your answers. If you happen to have an even numbered exponent with a negative base, negative 3 multiplied by itself 4 times. One fast way to do this is what's a negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9. Positive times a positive, positive 81. Okay, so that's not too bad to remember. Just kind of keep that in mind. That's a little shortcut for you. Okay, objective number 2, going to do a real brief discussion on finding the square roots. So when you see the square root symbol, it's telling you what times itself equals radicand, and the answer is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. If you happen to see the minus on the outside, you basically bring it down for your answer. So a negative on the outside comes right here, and the square root of 25 is 5. Now what's interesting is what happens if you have the negative underneath the radical. By the way, if I didn't say this is the radical sign, what if it's in here? Well, this presents a dilemma, because you have to have the exact same number. Think of the base. This is kind of going reverse of exponents. A positive times a positive 5 would be still a positive 25. A negative 5 times a negative 5 is still a positive 25. The only way to get a negative 25 is to take negative 5 times 5. However, that breaks the whole rule of what the square roots are. So now we come to this realization that there's no real number that can be multiplied by itself and equal negative 25, so therefore it is not a real number. Interesting, when we get to chapter 8 we will deal with that, but we'll save that good stuff for a couple weeks down the road. Okay, so I'm looking at example 4 real quick. What do you think the square root of 0 is? Well, fortunately, what number times itself equals 0? Answer 0. That's not too bad. If you happen to see the square root of fractions, you're allowed to separate them into the square root of the numerator divided by the square root of the denominator. So the square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4, and you're on your way. Okay. Last note, I've mentioned this. Think of that negative. If it's on the outside, you drop it and bring it down. Okay, class, hey, that's going to do page 1. We got to cover page 2 next, so I'll see you in a few. Bye.